Biography of Margaret Campbell. Margaret Campbell, Duchess of Argyll, née Whigham, December 1, 1912 to July 25, 1993, was a British socialite known for her beauty, style, and scandalous personal life, which became public during her high-profile divorce from Ian Campbell, 11th Duke of Argyll. Early life. Margaret Whigham was born in Newton Mearns, Renfrewshire, Scotland. She was the only child of George Hay Whigham, a Scottish businessman who made a fortune in America, and Helen Mann Hannay. Margaret spent much of her childhood in New York City, where she attended private schools and was introduced to high society. Her debutante ball in London in 1930 marked her entrance into British high society. Marriages and personal life. Margaret's first engagement was to Prince Ali Khan, but it was broken off. She then married Charles Sweeny, an American golfer, in 1933. The couple had 3 children, a son who died shortly after birth and 2 daughters, Frances and Jean. This marriage ended in divorce in 1947. In 1951, Margaret married Ian Campbell, 11th Duke of Argyll, becoming the Duchess of Argyll. The marriage was tumultuous and ended in a highly publicized divorce in 1963. The divorce proceedings were infamous for the Duke's allegations of infidelity against Margaret, supported by explicit photographs and diaries. The scandal captivated the British public and media, making Margaret a tabloid sensation. Later years. After her divorce, Margaret's financial situation deteriorated. She lived a more subdued life, though she remained a figure of public interest due to her past notoriety. Despite her fall from grace, Margaret maintained a dignified presence and continued to be recognized for her elegance and poise. Margaret Campbell died on July 25, 1993, in London. Her life story, filled with glamour, scandal, and resilience, remains a fascinating chapter in British social history. Born on December 1, 1912, Margaret Whigham was the only daughter of a Scottish businessman and millionaire, George Hay Whigham, and his wife, Helen Mann Hannay. After completing her education in New York, she moved back to the UK, where her beauty and status as an heiress made her much in demand on the social scene. At the age of 15, she became pregnant with the actor David Niven's child while on a holiday on the Isle of Wight, but the pregnancy was terminated. She was presented as a debutante in 1930, and after early romances with Prince Ali Khan, aviator Glenn Kidston, Baron Martin Stillman von Brabus, and publishing heir Max Aitken, later the 2nd Lord Beaverbrook, and Prince George, Duke of Kent, she became engaged to Charles Greville, 7th Earl of Warwick. Yet the wedding was not to be, as she was soon swept off her feet by the wealthy American, Charles Sweeny, who instead became her first husband. Her Norman Hartnell wedding dress cemented her status as one of the most glamorous socialites of the era, with crowds reportedly gathering to catch a glimpse of it. She became a lifelong patron of the designer, as well as Victor Steeble and Angeli de Langhi. Watch. What makes the Cannes Film Festival the epitome of glamour? During her marriage to Sweeny, she had 3 children, one who was a stillborn girl, as well as a son Brian and a daughter Frances, who went on to marry the Duke of Rutland, and she also suffered 8 miscarriages. She also almost died during a horrific accident while visiting her chiropodist, in which she fell down a lift shaft. The couple divorced in 1947, and she went on to become engaged again to Lehman Brothers banker Joseph Thomas, although they never married. Her second husband was Ian Douglas Campbell, 11th Duke of Argyll. Married in 1951, Margaret was at the height of her fame as a glamorous and stylish socialite, and had even been name-dropped in Cole Porter's song, "You're the Top." The marriage did not last long before fractures began to form, and the Duke, suspicious that his wife had been unfaithful, hired a locksmith to break into her private drawers while she was away in New York. Inside, he discovered a cache of evidence of her infidelities, including Polaroid pictures of her with another man. The pictures were part of a legal case the Duke drew up against the Duchess as part of divorce proceedings, alongside a list of 88 men he accused her of having sex with behind his back. The case soon became a tabloid sensation, with Margaret dubbed the Dirty Duchess and the identity of the Headless Man in the Polaroid pictures being widely speculated on. Sir Winston Churchill's son-in-law, Duncan Sandys, was one of them, as it was reported only the Minister of Defence had access to a Polaroid camera. While granting the divorce on May 8, 1963, the judge said of Margaret that she was a completely promiscuous woman whose sexual appetite could only be satisfied with a number of men. Her attitude to the sanctity of marriage was what moderns would call enlightened, but which in plain language was wholly immoral. After the historic case, she never remarried and lost much of her fortune in later life. She died aged 80 in 1993.